Please watch the video until the end to fully feel the unfolding of the lover's journey and the secrets the sea keeps. Chapter 1, The Tide That Brought Them. She, an older woman who had once known the salt and the wind more intimately than speech, begins where all true stories begin, with a single, unlikely arrival. The boat was little more than a broken promise against an endless horizon. In its hollow, two children found each other, one a quiet boy with eyes like the ocean at dusk, the other a bright, cautious girl whose laugh reminded those few birds that lingered of weathered bells. They were not born to the island, nor did the island claim them with ceremony. Fate, or perhaps human negligence, left them at the lip of a coral cradle. She remembers the first night. The sky poured stars so brightly one might think the heavens had come down to keep them company. The older woman remembers the two children curled together beneath a woven blanket, sharing warmth like a single heartbeat split between ribs. Shelter was learned by imitation. The girl, whom later towns would call Lena, watched the birds and copied their nests. The boy, named Caleb in later recollection, learned which leaves shed fresh water and which held bitter secrets. The narrator remembers telling herself, even then, that the island is a patient teacher, one that rewards those who listen to it more than it punishes those who don't. Chapter 2, The Curriculum of Waves. The narrator, who watched from a small vantage of memory, recalls how knowledge arrived not from books but from trial. Lena learned to coax fish from the reef with woven traps and patient hands. Caleb learned to read the weather by listening to the way gulls argued and to the subtleties of cloud and current. They fashioned their home from driftwood and memory, a shelter that smelled of salt and the intimate things of making. Seasons unfurled like pages. The children grew taller than the palms that once overshadowed them. Their games softened into routines that held the weight of ritual. They argued over who had the last sweet mango, they danced around storms that came furious and then left contrite. The narrator remembers, with a tenderness that cannot be feigned, the moment they first recognized each other not as playmates but as something rooted deeper, an easing and a danger all at once. They discovered the mirror of each other's faces in shallow lagoons. There, under the open sky, they learned the shape of longing. The island was generous with lessons, tide pools offered reflections and small, bright creatures, the night offered stars as witnesses. Their relationship grew as quietly as coral grows, layer after layer, patient and relentless. Chapter 3, Soft Bruises and Promises. The narrator, with the softness of hindsight, recounts how first embraces came clumsy and fearless, how curiosity was a bridge crafted of small brave acts. One evening, after a storm had left the shore cluttered with strange, generous things, Lena and Caleb lay beneath a split coconut frond and spoke of the future in the same breath, of ships that might never find them, of families they could not remember, of names that felt like the echo of someone else's life. There was a tenderness in their mistakes. A cut on Caleb's palm became a shared vigil. Lena showed him how to press a leaf to heal, and he, in return, made a brace of woven sinew to keep the wound safe while it mended. The narrator remembers how those small ministrations made up vows neither had the language to say. Their kisses came later, as if discovered by two cartographers mapping the geography of each other. Their love was not drama born from wantonness but a slow recognition of dependence and belonging. At times they feared the island's indifference, at others they believed the island loved them back. The narrator, whose voice remembers the precise weight of sand under a child's foot, notes that affection and work became identical acts. To feed, to protect, to teach, these were the verbs that bound them. Chapter 4, The Storm Inside and Without. If the island taught patience, it also taught loss. A hurricane arrived one summer like a beast that had learned malice. The narrator remembers the night as a thunderous scripture. Their shelter, carefully built, beloved, shuddered and bowed. Caleb and Lena clung to each other as the roof tore itself into ribbons and tossed them into a world that had suddenly returned to its ancient weather, indifferent, fierce, uncompromising. The storm took much and gave back less. Food stores were scattered, the reef was rearranged. They emerged to a shoreline that had been made new with grief. Yet it was in the aftermath that their humanity shone. They rebuilt, not with despair but with a stubbornness that made the narrator proud. They planted seeds in the sand, coaxed new shoots from the wreckage, and began again as if the act of rebuilding itself was a form of prayer. In those days, the narrator saw fear bloom and then soften into resolve. Secrets were exchanged like hand-carved tokens. Lena spoke of a lullaby her mother once hummed. Caleb showed a knot he had learned to tie that would never slip. Love, tempered by peril, became both armor and confession. Chapter 5, The New Life. Time, inevitable and gentle, carried them into new roles. Lena became a mother without ceremonious rites. Caleb became both father and midwife by necessity and devotion. The narrator recounts the slow, sacred work of bringing life into a place with no neighbors to witness it save the pelicans and the moon. The child, a small and stubborn heart, learned from the sea the language of tides and from the parents the patient anatomy of love. They named the child after nothing in particular, just a sound that fit the wind and the way the family moved together. The narrator watched as their eyes, once too young to hold tales, filled now with a map. Parenthood is less a role than a geography of small daily acts. There were nights of profound solitude and mornings of unrestrained joy. The family taught the child the names of every edible root and the safe currents to swim. Stories passed from Lena to Caleb to the child, stories of ships and strange cities like faraway dreams. In teaching, they kept the memory of who they had been alive, even as they became different. Chapter 6, The Choice of Returning. Years accumulate and change the tenor of choices. The narrator, her voice threaded with the salt of long observation, recounts the day a distant sail appeared, like a question raised on the horizon. For Lena and Caleb it became a crossroads, to remain in the sheltered geometry they had crafted or to answer the wider world's beckoning. They considered, with a deliberation that was not without fear, what it meant to leave the only home their child had ever known. They also thought of the fragile ledger of memories they carried, names of parents they could no longer find, promises broken by time. In the end, their decision was humble and profound, to trust that whatever the world held, it would be met together. They chose to go, not because the island no longer loved them but because the future seemed too wide not to be shared. The narrator remembers their boat, a patched, seaworthy thing tendered by all the lessons they had learned, and the way the waves seemed to coax them forward rather than repel them. They left the coral and the palms like stepping stones behind them, each one a quiet monument to survival. The narrator closes the tale with a memory that she keeps like a talisman, the family on the stern as the island shrank into a green coin on the water, the child asleep with a strand of seaweed hair across a brow, Lena and Caleb holding hands without the ostentation of speech. In that silence the narrator felt the purest truth. Love does not demand perfection, it insists on presence. She, who remembers their laughter as if it were her own, knows that stories like this are not simply meant to be heard. They are meant to be carried. If you enjoyed this tale, please subscribe to the channel, activate notifications, give the video a like, comment your thoughts below, and share the video with others who love gentle, seaborne stories.